I stood at the altar, tugging at my bow tie for the 100th time. I'd never worn one, and hoped to never have to do it again. The string quartet played their 4th rendition of the wedding processional, and still, no Riley. My best man checked his watch with increasing frequency. I kept my eyes fixed on the church doors, willing them to open. Riley and I had been together for 5 years. I still remember our first date, her laugh when I spilled wine on my shirt, the way she helped dab it clean instead of being embarrassed. I thought I knew her. I thought what we had was real. Pastor Michaels approached me, his face a portrait of concern. Aiden, perhaps we should. The church doors finally opened, but instead of Riley in white, it was her maid of honor, Claire, clutching an envelope with shaking hands. I'm so sorry, she whispered, pressing it into my palm. The handwriting wasn't Riley's. It was Mason's, my step-brother's, in his distinctive scrawl. I recognized it immediately from the company memos he always left on my desk, asserting his presence in a business he had no legal claim to. Aiden. By the time you read this, Riley and I will be married, and halfway to the Maldives for our honeymoon. We never meant to hurt you, but you can't choose who you love. We both know Father always wanted me to run the business anyway. Riley and I will be back in 3 weeks to sort everything out. Consider this a blessing in disguise. You were never cut out for either of us. It was signed, Mason. I looked up from the note to face 200 expectant guests, including my mother and my stepmother, Vivian. She had married my father when I was 12, bringing her son Mason into our lives. My father had treated Mason like his own, even giving him a position at Excelsior Enterprises despite his lack of qualifications. Now Vivian sat stiffly in the front row, her face a mask of practiced shock. I cleared my throat. There will be no wedding today. My voice echoed in the vast church. Riley has decided to marry my step-brother instead. The collective gasp was almost theatrical. I walked down the aisle alone, past the whispers, past the pitying glances, past my mother's concerned face and Vivian's hand, reaching for mine in what appeared to be genuine sympathy. I didn't stop until I reached my car. Only then did I allow myself to scream. For a week, I barely left my apartment. Whiskey became my companion of choice. I ignored calls from the office, from friends, from my mother. The only messages I read were from Mason, taunting updates from their honeymoon, interspersed with casual mentions of changes he planned to implement at Excelsior Enterprises once they returned. Thinking of converting your office into a nursery eventually. Riley loves the ocean view. The board seems eager for fresh leadership. I already have calls scheduled for our return. Father always said you were too cautious with expansion. I'm planning to remedy that. Each message burned like acid, but I let them come. Let him believe I was drowning in self-pity. Let him think I was broken. Then Riley called. Aiden. Her voice was soft, practiced. We need to talk about this like adults. Like the adults who left a note with her maid of honor rather than face me. The words came out sharper than I intended. That was Mason's idea. I wanted to tell you in person, but it all happened so fast. Aiden, I still care about what happens to you. How generous of you. A pause. Mason mentioned your father's will never actually specified the division of assets. He said your father always intended for the business to be split between both sons. And there it was. The real reason for her call. Is that what this is about, Riley? Assets. Don't be cruel. I'm trying to make this transition smoother for everyone. Her voice hardened slightly. Mason is family too. He deserves his share. Family. The word echoed hollowly. It made me think of my father's final months, when he'd called me to his study, oxygen tank by his side. Aiden, he'd said, his voice barely above a whisper. I've seen how Vivian has changed since the diagnosis. I've noticed how she speaks to Mason about birthright and entitlement. He has no birthright. True, but he acts awfully entitled. I'm telling you now, I won't leave you vulnerable when I'm gone. That night, he had me sign dozens of documents. By morning, every significant asset of Excelsior Enterprises had been legally transferred to my name. Not the family name, my name specifically. Vivian and Mason will be well taken care of through the trust, he'd explained. But the business is yours. It always has been. I hadn't told anyone, not even Riley. Perhaps that had been my mistake. I have to go, I told her now. Safe travels home. I hung up before she could respond. Then I called my lawyer. While Mason and Riley sunned themselves in the Maldives, sharing Instagram photos of infinity pools and sunset cocktails, I executed the contingency plan my father and I had created after his diagnosis. Excelsior Enterprises had always been structured as a series of interconnected LLCs and holdings, a deliberately complex web that Dad had designed for tax purposes. Now, that complexity served a different purpose. I worked through nights, transferring funds between subsidiary accounts, restructuring ownership hierarchies, and quietly informing our most valuable clients of a planned reorganization. My father's old friend in our company, CFO, Harrington, helped me document everything meticulously. By the time we finished, Excelsior Enterprises still existed on paper, but its valuable assets were now housed in 3 new entities, all exclusively owned by me. Your father would be proud, Harrington said, as we finalized the last transfer. He always said you had the head for this business. I didn't feel proud. I felt empty, but I also felt resolved. I spent the final week of Mason and Riley's honeymoon preparing the office. I left Mason's keycard active. I didn't change the locks or the passcodes. I wanted them to walk in believing nothing had changed. They arrived on a Monday, tanned and seemingly triumphant. I watched from my office as they entered the building, Mason's arm proprietarily around Riley's waist. They didn't come to see me first. Instead, they went straight to the conference room, where Mason had apparently scheduled an emergency board meeting. I let them wait 15 minutes before entering. Mason, I nodded. Riley, welcome back. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Most of them had attended what should have been my wedding. Aiden, Mason stood, extending his hand as if the past month had been a minor business disagreement. Good to see you back at work. I was concerned about your absence. I ignored his hand. I understand you've called an emergency meeting. Yes, he smiled, confidence oozing from every pore. In light of recent personal developments, I think it's important we discuss the future leadership structure of Excelsior Enterprises. Riley sat beside him, her engagement ring, not the one I had given her, catching the light ostentatiously. I've prepared a presentation, Mason continued, nodding to Riley, who opened a laptop. Given that our father always intended for both sons to share in his legacy, he was my father, not our father, I interrupted quietly. Mason paused, his smile faltering slightly. He raised me since I was 12, Aiden. He was the only father I ever knew, and he wanted both his sons to share in his legacy. Harold Excelsior was my father, I agreed, and he made his intentions for his legacy perfectly clear. I nodded to Harrington, who distributed folders to each board member. What's this? Mason demanded, flipping his open. Documentation of ownership, I replied simply. Excelsior Enterprises, as the holding company you're attempting to claim a stake in, now exists primarily as a shell. Its assets, properties, client contracts, and liquid capital have been legally redistributed to new entities, all of which are solely owned by me. The blood drained from Mason's face. That's impossible. That's theft. Actually, said Harrington, it's exactly what Harold Excelsior stipulated in his final arrangements. All assets were transferred to Aiden's name 3 years ago. He has simply exercised his right to restructure those assets. Riley's eyes darted between Mason and me. There must be some mistake, she said, her voice tight. Your mother told us the company would be divided between both sons. My mother was never in a position to make that promise, I replied. My father made sure of that before he died. Mason slammed his fist on the table. I'll fight this. We'll take this to court. You're welcome to try, I said. The documentation is extremely thorough. The board meeting adjourned shortly after, with Mason storming out, Riley hurrying behind him. I remained in my chair, feeling no satisfaction, only a strange sense of hollow vindication. Over the next month, Mason made increasingly desperate moves. He tried to approach our largest clients directly, only to discover I had already spoken with each of them. He attempted to access our banking records, only to find his credentials revoked. He even tried to rally the board against me, claiming I had manipulated my father in his final days. None of it worked. Meanwhile, Riley's Instagram feed transformed from honeymoon bliss to staged normalcy. Photos of coffee shops and inspirational quotes about new beginnings and weathering storms together. The comments were littered with thinly veiled questions about what had happened with the company, questions she carefully avoided answering. Mason finally requested a private meeting. This isn't right, Aiden, he said, looking haggard. I've been working for this company since college. I've earned my place as an employee, I pointed out. A well-compensated one. I'm family, he insisted. Your father. My father knew exactly what he was doing. He watched how you and my stepmother spoke about the business like it was already yours. He saw how you undermined me in meetings, how you took credit for my projects. Mason's face flushed. That's not true. It is. But that's not even why we're here. We're here because you took something from me that wasn't business related at all. His eyes dropped to the desk. We fell in love, Aiden. These things happen. No, Mason. People don't accidentally fall in love with their stepbrother's fiancée a week before the wedding. then leave him standing at the altar. You saw an opportunity and you took it. You thought Riley was your ticket to what you always wanted, control over me so you could get control of Excelsior Enterprises. He didn't deny it. And you? I turned to Riley, who had been silent until now. Did you ever love me at all? Or was I just the Excelsior son, who proposed first? That's unfair, she whispered, but her eyes gave her away. I slid a folder across the desk. Here's my offer. It's more than either of you deserve, but less than what you hope to steal. Inside was documentation for a modest severance package for Mason and a small stake in one of the subsidiary companies, enough for them to live comfortably, but nowhere near the fortune they had plotted to obtain. This is insulting, Mason spat, shoving the folder back. You've ruined us. We're entitled to more than this. You've got money from a trust my father established. You're entitled to nothing from me, I replied calmly. This offer expires today. Keep your charity, Riley said, standing abruptly. You've destroyed our lives, Aiden. I hope you're satisfied. They left my office for the last time. The next day, Mason cleared out his desk. I heard they moved to Riley's parents' beach house in North Carolina. Sometimes I still see her posts, fewer followers now, fewer likes, but still projecting an image of happiness I suspect is as hollow as the victory I feel. 6 months have passed since the wedding that never was. Excelsior Enterprises continues to thrive under my leadership. The new structure has actually streamlined our operations, and profits are up nearly 20%. I should feel vindicated. I should feel triumphant. Instead, I find myself standing at my office window late at night, wondering what my father would really think of all this. He protected me, yes. He ensured I wouldn't be vulnerable to Vivian's schemes or Mason's entitlement. But I don't think he anticipated the complete fracturing of what remained of our family. My mother tries to stay neutral, but I can tell she's disappointed in how things turned out. She had been really close to Riley and looked forward to her future grandchildren. Vivian, and surprisingly, hasn't spoken to me since the board meeting. Was it worth it? Did I win? Some days I think so. I protected what my father built. I exposed Mason and Riley's true natures before they could do more damage. Other days, I wonder if I become something my father wouldn't recognize, a man defined by betrayal and revenge rather than the values he tried to instill in me. The truth is, there was no clean way out of this, no path that would have left me whole. Mason and Riley made their choice, and I made mine. We'll all live with the consequences. I've started seeing someone new. Rebecca. She's nothing like Riley. She's authentic, direct, uninterested in status or appearances. She knows my story, knows my scars. She doesn't try to fix me, just walks beside me as I find my way forward. Last week, I established a new charitable foundation in my father's name, the Harold Excelsior Foundation for Children of Single Parents. It feels like something he would approve of, creating opportunity from loss. I don't know if I'll ever forgive Mason or Riley. I'm not sure forgiveness is even the right goal, but I do know I don't want to be defined by what they did to me forever. There has to be something more waiting on the other side of betrayal. My father once told me that the true measure of a business isn't its profits, but its resilience, its ability to weather crises and emerge stronger. Perhaps the same is true for people. I am still standing, bruised, changed, but standing, and I will continue to build. Please like and subscribe for more great revenge story videos. We appreciate your support. We'd love to hear your family drama revenge stories. Please feel free to share in the comments.